guys must just be factoring in that they don't want to see a runaway competition. It's hard to tell, Levin.
My head is spinning right now. I have so many questions. Why are you anywhere near here? For what? I don't know what they were cooking up. If you decided you want to switch up your off spawns, things haven't been working for you, which again, it pretty much hasn't been for Ping and Ghost. Why can Sky and Scroll? I mean, I know Born didn't quite go their way, but let's take our minds back to Major 1 when they were in an off spawn battle against Pablo and Chino, and they had the pixel perfect drops. This isn't a team who are scrubs off spawn by any means, and they showcase that there. Scroll does well to hold his nerve and keep their lead alive. Shark and Tini, I'm sure they must have definitely, if they have anyone coaching them, letting them know, hey, you know, they almost went down off spawn, like you almost had it. Let's make sure we have a good game here.
It's just take for Ping and Ghost position. Still, fact of the matter is that late night off spawn practice definitely paying off tenfold right now for Sky and Scroll, and the fact that they were able to come out on top here. Ari and Cammy, though, they've been surprised one time already, and this time it's going to be Haris and Pink who catch them off guard over at their off spawn point, but this is a tough break.
Yeah, and Pink and Haris are one of those bubble teams, a team who a couple good games now would do enough to send them to the global championships, and what that would mean for Pink. I mean, it's been a long time since he has touched the land. Haris is a player as well we have not seen in such a long time, and so these are players who desperately want to make this work, and when that desperation kicks in, Tackle, you start to do anything in your power. That's when you start to whip out all of the secret strats you've been holding on to, little tactics figured out in scrim sessions that you wanted to save for a big moment have to come out now.
For Lyrics and Maldives, they've certainly got a tall task in front of them of trying to deal with the likes of Vico and Malabuka. They're just playing, fully understanding qualification for Belgium. They've already secured that. They are our Summit champions after all, but this has definitely not been the grand performance that they would have initially intended for. That's why we see them just trying to take things up another level here. Already got one elimination. Looking for additional pair on Lyrics and Maldives will be the first one brought down by Vico. Malabuka is still looking to try and close things out, but he might get turned on if he's not careful. Lyrics, not as he might. It's going to be an out, but it's the third-party intervention here now to ultimately play spoiler. Vico and Malabuka, but it initially seemed like it'd be a lock. Axforce and Bevies have just decided, you know what? This actually looks like a comeback opportunity here. If we can find any sort of a catalyst, it's like you said, Levin, teams using every single trick left up their sleeves right now to try and put themselves in a better position to make it into that bubble, to make it in the qualification section for Globals. And Vico, try as he might, won't be able to get away. Axforce and Bevies just get the upper hand on this one.
Yeah, and Axforce and Bevies, again, a team that has had sort of a roller coaster of a competition, ups and downs, a couple more downs and ups, you'd have to say, but a big win in this fight, and hopefully they can snowball that into a big game here.
I know that we're seeing Medius lighting up that elimination feed for a moment, watching iDrop and Gonzo. I'll opt for the teleporter. Whether they choose to camp it out, though, we'll have to wait and see. But there are a lot of teams that are still seeking out that Global's qual spot. And I know one that everyone in the EU region would certainly love to see would be Savage and Truly. But again, today has just been so lackluster. And they've got to start and build any semblance of rhythm here between the two. Just one solid game. Levin, that is realistically all it would take for these two to get a little bit of a buffer zone here, but The desk already highlighted it. That leaderboard, 11th through 20th, when only 30 placement points are really separating that many different competitors, it just gets so dicey. You don't want to overthink it, but you also don't want to find yourself in a position where you're hesitating. And that's where Savage experience could show up.
I think one thing we've seen in Grands over the years is there's always teams who really just struggle with the changes all across the lobby on day twos, right? Changes when it comes to your surge strategy, changes when it comes to what teams are landing around you or on you, as we've seen in some of these games. And I think so far these guys have been dealing with that the worst of a lot of the better teams we've seen today. I'd be curious to look at just a session leaderboard for just today and where they stack up on it. Can't imagine it looks too good.
Well, I get a chance to dive a little bit deeper into that later on. For right now, Sinister Strip, Sky and Scroll, they've left Frosted Flats. And you have to remember, even though they succeeded with the off spawn, they did take a good chunk of return damage. So the Surge, not necessarily fully in their favor just yet. They're just kicking out some space right now, but Chino and Pablo, with this being their starting point, very likely they're not going to be big fans of Sky and Scroll choosing to make themselves feel at home.
Don't think it matters over there, fan of it. Not much they can do about it.
Fairs. Sometimes that's all that can be said for these teams, but one duo that has been particularly exciting, Fat and Legends, largely just because, well, then they've done a great job in today's competition. When we're talking about teams that haven't necessarily done the best in making those adjustments to day two, this is one that has certainly delivered so far. And with back-to-back fourth placements, it has helped them out tremendously with finding very solid footing in terms of getting that placement metric for the Belgium qualification spot. And they keep up the pace, if they can just continue replicating the success that they've already started with, they'll definitely find themselves nestling into that Belgium's battle bus in no time whatsoever. But for Cammy, Hari, Pink, and Haris, they might have just been the dagger for this duo. Dandy Puzo and Azat gonna further punish Cammy. No real ability to escape here. Hari is left off somewhere else entirely, but it is just a daunting task to sit and hide, hope that you're not seen. Just crouched around Pink and her wrist, just got him completely cut off, just nowhere left to really run.
And the problem is he don't want to whip out his shotgun because it's going to make a sound cue. So he's forced to just hold the mini out until they make the play. And then he'll have to switch, and doesn't have much HP. Can't pop the mini because that's going to make sound. I don't think they know he's here. It's not an easy spot for him to get out of, yeah. Just rotating away, and that works out nicely for Ari, especially because of just coming in. That HP was dwindling. He desperately needed to get access to that vending machine. And so things will work out for him there.
But even if he makes another play for the reboot, even if he brings Cammy back into this one, they are going to spend so much time inside of the Storm in comparison to a lot of other competitors in this lobby. That Storm sickness is very likely going to be an issue for them later on. And that's if they even make it to that stage, right? Pulling off a successful endgame performance from the cards that they've been dealt in game number 10. It's going to be very rough as Teeny Shark, one more time, getting a little bit more damage than what they were actually able to dish out. But that's not to say that they haven't been able to do their part.
Yeah, that last game, I think, was a real pivotal moment. That final 2v2, I think, is one that will be remembered in EU FNCS history for many years to come. Because that really felt like the turning moment. If you're Ian Shark You have your global spot solidified. All that matters to you is trying to get this first FNCS championship. Teeny has come so close many times before. Shark needs that chip, the validation that his talent can amount to wins and success. But to lose that 2v2 and lose the game, it's so symbolic to just how dominant Sky and Scroll are.
They're just not leaving any sort of room for error. But it could also be a bit of a motivational factor here for Shark and Teeny. If they're still able to somehow, some way catch up and potentially overtake Sky and Scroll, that would definitely, it would just say so much in terms of they're able to actually on the biggest stages. But for Sky and Scroll right now, ball's in their court. They haven't really feel any sort of pressure outside of the initial off spawn.
We're in, the double-digit games now, right? And with this type of a lead, you've got to think another big game here. And if Shark and Teeny can't deliver a big game to match them, that's really where you have to start saying sayonara and allow them to waltz into the sunset. But hopefully that doesn't happen, because we like some drama. We like to be kept on our toes. There is still plenty of drama though, because so many of these teams in positions to qualify for globals. Velo and Zynox currently one of those teams in a position to qualify. But one of those teams who, again, if they don't
Still, if they are going to take an engagement, Pablo and Chino might just be one of the worst teams they could be having to match up against, because we know just how potent they are as fighters. And not only that, but any signs of weakness out of Sky and Scroll in that box fight, you could expect that they're going to continue trying to press that issue and ensure they find an overall
prize contestation from Ping and Ghost. If just them being content, even when they win, leads to struggling games like that, is that what the rest of this competition is going to hold for them? Do Ping and Ghost continue to try and fight them on spawn? What happens when Ping and Ghost win the battle? And now there's even more of an opportunity for Shark and team to try and catch up.
What if it's not just Ping and Ghost? That's the other issue too that now starts to be introduced into the mix, because we know that Ping and Ghost are willing to take that chance, but other duos, maybe even some of our leading contenders, now potentially wondering if that might be an option that steadily opened itself up to them. Still Savage and Truly scoping back in with things for lobby number. A very awkward position right now, almost 200 underneath that surge entirely, and not only that, but practically fully out of any sort of utility. Savage will use the last of his Chug Jug. They're gonna have to rotate eventually 11, and they're gonna be rotating directly in so many different duos' line of sights. That's why they're trying to get the damage before they make their way across, and they have managed to just catapult themselves over now, 196 above, but still in such grim circumstances. They're not the only ones. Ping also struggling currently, despite starting off with that off-spawn surprise. It hasn't actually netted them any favors in the long run here. And now Truly Savage still looking to see if they can have some form of a breakthrough, but Yanis and Rax, they're the ones who are actually desperately in need of another fight. Surge does manage to tick in their favor, but it works against Savage and Truly at the exact same time.
Yeah, and this really puts them in a bad position moving forward. I mean, not only the need for the extra damage, of course, there's 4 players needing to drop, but the lack of materials, the lack of shields, and the poor timing ultimately is a recipe for failure. Shark and Teeny will continue their trek towards catching up to Sky and Scroll. And now there is hope for them in this game.
They've got decent builds too. Every little bit of damage. It's largely going to be the elimination points that I think these two are after. Unfortunately, Shark blocked there momentarily on the rotate, but won't deter them too heavily. Pixovsky and Sarah trying to do what they can just to keep their heads above the water. They don't want to sink just yet, but Pixovsky forced to drop as a solo. No other options but to try and get a little bit of surprise play, crouching around some of these lower layers. Truly very similar category. Just hoping that he can get the opening shot he needs. Depending exclusively on a refresh is just such a fickle position to be in. Working in also from the backside of the zone, you know that there's going to be so many pre-established teams lying in front of you. Somehow, some way though, neither Truly or Pixovsky has encountered anyone just yet. No one looking down, but that could change. A couple seconds here. Sure enough though, Truly able to create just a little bit more space. Hasn't run out of materials entirely just yet. Same sort of circumstances too for Pixovsky. We are watching 2 separate solos just doing everything in their power to squeeze out every little bit of placement, but Truly scout the healthy duo right next to him. He'll have to get a move on, overdrive forward. Doesn't care where it sends him as long as it's away from those two. And he can keep this one rolling forward.
You can see in the rest of the lobby, many of our global championships qualified teams having a bit of fun, finally finding their groove in this lobby and strutting their stuff since we've seen them on height. But finally, another opportunity for this duo to continue to cement themselves high up in the standings, while down below, more of our talented duos fight. Teeny and Shark drop down and looking very weak. Tackle, not many options. And so they're going to have to get to work with Eshkas.
Not only that, but they're also trying to evade high ground. But just like that, Teeny finds Meandro a little bit too preoccupied with what was directly in front of him. That is a big opener for Shark and Teeny. That's helping out Teeny tremendously here. But even still, Shark incredibly weak. Still trying to break through. The Woodbills just making it through in the nick of time. But with Shark just on his last legs here, they're going to have to try and convert yet another elimination. But it's Shark who gets brought down. Darkos and Minori a bit too healthy to contend here, and they know that body rolling around behind them. Whether or not Teeny's going to let them actually get to it, though, is another conversation entirely, because they're trying to just match pace with the rest of the lobby. They're trying to stick towards frontside, and Teeny has managed stay one layer above, but still, Levin, he needs so much more to try and pull out a strong placement.
And Teeny has been the key to this duo's success. And one more time, he takes up the mantle to try and clutch up Solo. Gets dropped down as Dom looks to do the same for his duo. Plenty of materials to just keep him ticking in this game that much longer. But there will be duos hunting and fighting for him. He doesn't mind though. Twek will jump into his box and he will handle it swiftly. Chap with 8 now. He's really trying to fight for a position to qualify. None of these teams, none of these players want to let this slip.
Crazy though, just how many solos are actually left over here. Chap with another one onto Minori. Can he get the siphon? No, he's gonna shut that one. He's been eliminated, but Izzy Nosen, one of the few lobby teams, actually has a duo still trying to contend up against the likes of Darm, who's going to get Nosen in the process. Focus now dropping Agent of Chaos. He wants to confirm this victory royale for himself and Thomas. They've been needing a big bounce back game here on day 2, and they might just be able to find it. Focus, Thomas still skirting around, just waiting. Both of them so limited on materials in comparison to Darm. He might actually have the firepower to do this, but the shots overhead, Thomas going to get the job done. Darm is just so incredibly weak. He won't have an opportunity to heal, not with 2 separate players aggressing on his floors just like this. And Thomas' focus incredibly low, but it doesn't matter. Thomas will make sure to cement a victory royale in their favor.
Dom did his absolute best, but Thomas and Focus from above, dropping down below, will get their 2nd win of the competition.
Thank you so much, guys. Thomas, they've been pretty lobbies so far, but it's great to see them pop up and get a 2nd victory royale. Mini Minor.
Yeah, great to see. I mean, they just need a zone, you know? It's like, there's finally, they get a south zone, sort of. They only had a couple this weekend, and finally they've actually made it work right there, taking high. Only a couple of eliminations as well, but it's exactly what this team needs. Should be boosting them up in the standings as well, because they weren't even sort of that far down to Carter going into that game, so it's going to do them a world of good, and their confidence a world of good as well.
Yeah, they've actually done quite well today. Yesterday, they ended in 15th place, and I think they're 7th place going into this last match. So after that win, they're going to be jumping up even higher. They got eliminations, 8 eliminations in the game before this, and as we saw this, they weren't as frag heavy, but they still got the VR, which is more than enough. So I'm honestly very happy to see this.
I love the way they took high there as well, taking down Swizzy and Pixie, and I think they benefited from the fact that, of course, Shark and Teeny went down a lot earlier in that game. They were a little bit scuffed. Of course, Sky and Scroll down a lot earlier than expected in that game as well, but they needed to step up and take the plate right there, which they did, of course, as well. And I think, again, it's just been a bit of a what could have been grand finals from Thomas HD. It's like, yeah, we talk about zones, but even still, it's like, this has happened last season, it's happened last and they couldn't happen. So it's like, I really wanted to see a lot more from these guys, which they can still give us here in these last 2 games, but they've just shown how much they've got in the tank in that last game.
Well, it was a shocker for our top 2 duos. We're talking about what happened to Sky and Scroll and Shark and Teeny after the break.
And so now, Seti and the Yakko looking to remind the rest of the competition that they are in it for the win.
It's Pixie, it's Marius, and Vanya. If they want the win, it's the moment. No, what is in front of them? And they want to take it by force. They already have 2nd place locked in. It's all
préparer pour un shot de ouf ce soir. Je crois que vous allez aimer. Quoi. Parce que c'est différent des shots que je fais d'habitude. Ouais. Je vous avais déjà teasé une collab dans l'un des premiers shorts. Et là, ça va envoyer du lourd. Là, j'ai un problème, j'ai lancé un sondage. Mais je pense pas que vous puissiez répondre. J'ai trouvé une autre solution pour régler ça et ça va. Bon, s'il y a d'autres questions à propos de la chaîne, vous pouvez y aller. Hein. Bien sûr, il y aura différentes collabs à venir. Voilà, la 12e game va bientôt commencer. Donc, je prends une dernière question. Bon, pour maintenant, pour l'instant, on n'a pas assez de favoris. Bon, pour moi, mon favori, c'est Pixie. Quoi. Comme tout supporter de la team Avoc. Moi, je mets un truc le temps que la prochaine game se lance. J'ai un problème avec les sondages. Quoi.
carry that forward. And I think having seen Dom do that and to do that as a solo for a considerable amount of time, to pick up all those eliminations, I think that's going to be really motivating for them going to the next.
N'hésitez pas à
So
liker
let's
et
keep
vous
our
abonner si
eyes
vous êtes
on them.
nouveau sur la
Let's
chaîne.
take a look at the second page because we have so many duos already qualified within the top 18. It's only Size and Scary who are currently outside of it, which means for all the duos on this page, Mini Miner, it's very exciting. I mean, Savage and Truly, they're currently on the line for qualification just outside it.
On se met une petite vidéo détente et descend.
It's great to see them having a resurgence in their performance.
Yeah, but we look at the second page going into the last game. There's only a 30-point difference to the 20th. Now that's more like 20-point difference, which is absolutely crazy to see the difference in it now. So that gap is widening between this page and the leaderboard. So it's even more important now for the teams like Mr. Savage and Truly, for teams like Fringe and Volk, who are just outside of it, to really now make the last season if they want to find themselves in global discrimination.
On attend que la game se relance, hein. Bon, il y a la game qui vient de se lancer, hein. Aujourd'hui, je vous remets le son.
They will deal with the off-spawn disturbance swiftly. And unfortunately for those two teams, not much they can do to affect our Major 1 champs. Both of those teams in the bottom half of the leaderboard, 46th and 47th respectively. And more than likely now, no chance of qualifying for the Global Championships. Across the lobby, we see a lot of our different teams who still are within a shot when it comes to global qualifying for the Global Championship. Of course, the biggest fan favorite, Mr. Savage, the one everybody wants to see make it. And here in Game 11, starts off as a solo, needing to pick Truly back up.
That's the problem, right? Bimbo and Radeon just having Savage on the run currently. He's going to have to spend so much more time just hiding out before he can realistically try and go for any sort of reboot options. And that setback, when today has just been a series of setbacks for Savage and Truly. It started off the day around that 10th place position on the leaderboard. And with every single match that goes by, find themselves sinking 1, 2 placements ever lower. Meanwhile, competition like Pink and Haris trying to do what they can. They've had some fluctuations, ultimately find themselves just on the cusp. They need big performances here. And an early game, surprise, even if that goes your way, there's just so much more of the game left to play and contend with. And
final for plenty of these teams, but plenty of lessons to be taken moving forward. It's been weird because I think obviously where our focus is on the excellence and the honestly just unbelievable levels of consistency from Sky and Skrull. A lot of these different teams have showed in here, games here and there that they still have plenty to offer when it comes to competing with the best of them in EU. But the reality is, as long as Sky and Skrull exists, you're gonna have to be able to do it consistently if you have any hope. Rax and Janice sitting 14th coming into this game, and they're a duo that many will be hoping can do enough just to hold on, get the job done.
it's been promising at times for Rax and Yanis, but obviously Yanis sort of investing into Fortnite future here alongside of Rax, and they're trying to gauge whether or not they can continue just building up on their current placement.
And Janice is someone who has obviously a very storied past. One of the all-time greats here in the EU, many different FNCS championships in multiple modes. One of the few players to win in trios, duos, and a solo. But also a player who is known for his ability to pick out some of the best talents many people might have forgotten. Janice was one of the first people to really give Pixius opportunity to showcase what he could do at LAN. And now looking to do the same here for the young, talented Rax.
This is getting weird now at Frosted Flats. Shark and Teeny have gone a long ways from Calamari Canyon, but first we'll have to deal with Godoy and Polo. Teeny, Shark tag team effort has led to one elimination so far, but Sky and Skrull not too far away. Shark trying to see if he can still be hot in pursuit here to take Polo. They want to make sure that they have a clear avenue of approach when trying to deal with the likes of Sky and Skrull. But the fact of the matter is, if they were sneaking about here, trying to get a surprise play off on Sky and Skrull, Goihoy and Polo have completely ruined it. Sky and Skrull definitely going to be on red alert here. And I was going to ask you earlier on when we first checked in with Shark and T, was it a missed opportunity for these two to not initially go for that immediate off-spawn fight? But seems like that question's been answered because they've opted to still take the matter into their own hands. They are diving in against Skrull. And Shark trying to be one of the first into the box here. Skrull just so weak, he needs some backup, but Sky a little bit stuck here. They're trying to work their way up, but Skrull, he's gonna need some help here.
This is monumental. Shark and Teeny, they lost in the final 2v2 a couple games ago, and they've decided they don't want to lose anymore. They're taking the fight to Sky and Skrull, and they know it's them. You can't miss them. This base at Frosted Flats is a big sign, a big flag to say. And Shark and Teeny, they know they can't maybe play as perfect Fortnite as Sky and Skrull do, but what they certainly can is beat them in a 2v2 box fight, and that is where the urgency comes from. Sky and Skrull will look to create some space, and they'll look to separate, stop a fight from breaking out. But even if Teeny and Shark don't quite get the damage, don't quite get the limbs tackle, you could argue the damage has maybe been done. Think about all the materials Sky and Skrull have had to invest in this one to stay up. Think about the timing and the opportunity lost when it comes to surge damage. this right here could just be enough to rock the boat and give Shark and Teeny that opening that they need.
Also thinking about how many times have we seen Sky and Scroll just already rotated into the perfect position when we approach those endgame circumstances. But with Shark and Teeny here, that's just not going to be an option. They are going to have to deal with these two one way or another. And the conclusion might not be one that they're hoping for, but for Shark and Teeny, they know exactly what is at stake. This would be the game to turn things around. If they are able to convert this fight into a pair of eliminations on Sky and Scroll, and then potentially even look for a solid endgame performance, they're going to need the victor roll after the fact. It starts with taking out Sky and Scroll. It continues with Shark and Teeny, then having to contend with the rest of the lobby.
In Major 1, Chino and Pablo chose game number 11 as their opportunity to strike. And here in Major 2, Shark and Teeny same. They realize that they need the extra game buffer to give themselves the best chance. But it's not going to be easy. Sky and Scroll never make things easy. And so the stalemate will continue. Will they get impatient and leave? Or will somebody make a mistake that costs their duo an FNCS title?
This is really starting to look like a battle of attrition, though. When you think about it, Sky, Scroll, they haven't necessarily had the time that they would have preferred to really farm up the material count. And it's the same position for Shark and Teeny because they had to get a move on. They had to hustle to be in this position in the first place to challenge Sky and Scroll. Now the rest of the lobby also closing in, more teams being drawn to this position because of the way that the zone is pooling. Frosted Flats, smack dab in the center of it all. Sky, Scroll, they want to separate, but Shark and Teeny, they don't want to permit. And instead, it's going to be Shark and Teeny creating a little bit more distance than what they bargained for. Potentially even Teeny trying to go for a bit of a fake out here. Because now he's going to reunite one more time alongside Shark and just continue to try and hold out. Try and find the opening angles that will net them an advantage against the likes of Sky and Scroll. These two, they've realized it's not going to be an option.
What a great overdrive made from Scroll. Completely fakes Teeny out. And they take enough damage to where they realize if there's any hope for them in this game, they need to dip out and recover this game. Again, when we talk about Sky and Scroll doing things and playing things perfectly, that was the best play they could have made. Psychologically, it just puts the pressure once again on Shark and Teeny, and now their game is spiraling out of control. The investment has not paid its dividends. Shark and Teeny now on bare bones. And what was a play that was started with the intentioning of ending the run of Sky and Scroll might just be what ends the run of Teeny and Shark here.
To make matters worse still, it's Godoy and Polo of all teams that are now circling back. We saw what Shark and Teeny had started with those two. They had forced Godoy out of the vicinity, and yet now they're a little bit stuck in the thick of it. They're not really able to find a way to squeeze themselves out of here, and they need material desperately. It might even be a fight that they're forced to take despite being on fumes here. The options are just so limited right now in comparison to Sky and Scroll, who have just managed to evade all of that chaos because of holding off Shark and Teeny for as long as they did. You have to respect the gall there, though, from Shark and Teeny, though. They made the attempt.
Absolutely, props to them. At every opportunity, Tucker, we've tried to almost write them off and say, look, Sky and Scroll have got the win. FNCS is over. Let's focus on the global qualified team. Shark and Teeny say, no, we ain't done fighting. And even if it's off, like you said, you have to give them props for the attempt. And one thing I think we can probably say with some confidence is that they won't just go down and roll over. They will keep kicking and keep making a fuss until Sky and Scroll are forced to do something about it. But things now cooling off between the two, Teeny and Shark. When you take away the plays that they made and the context of them trying to take down the team in their way for an FNCS, when you take that all away and just look at their situation right now in this game, Taco, it looks horrible. 3 builds for Teeny, not much more for Shark, and way down below on Surge.
Their loadouts just look like a duo that has been playing reboot after reboot so far in game 11. And yet that's just not the case. But ultimately, Shark and Teeny, still hard to rule them out. We know just how quickly they can turn a fight into their favor. But for Sky and Scroll, potentially even looking on some of the action that's about to ensue here, Shark, Teeny, their tourney standings on the line here. If they go down before placement really even begins to factor in, Sky and Scroll are going to be left largely uncontested. They very likely just see themselves as tournament winners here, but Shark, Teeny desperately trying to see whether or not they can bring down Pixie, Swizzy, both of them just narrowly managing to skirt around, but they run directly into where Dinas is at, and now Teeny, Shark trying to come alive here, but they found themselves a bit pincered now. Teeny has fallen, Surge ticking away at what HP is left here, and Shark forced to fall back, but 519 below. There's only so much left to be done in this type of circumstance, and for Shark, it's just too tall. Big.
Wow. The game's not even done, Taco, but what a game so far. I mean, this is what it's all about. Sky and Scroll now have the opportunity to really try and shut Shark and Teeny up for good. I think the funny thing about this game becomes no matter what Sky and Scroll do here, they have to know. Next game, Frosted Flats is not safe. No, they better have someone prepping another drop spot for them for the final game. They should not go anywhere near that spot. But let's see what they cook up here in game number 11. Let's see if they can add to their lead and mitigate any potential game 12 off-spawn shenanigans. Of course, they also have had quite a tough time trying to make up for the lost time after that Shark and Teeny stalemate. But they've done a better job of recovering the game here, Taco.
And, you know, for as heartbreaking as that defeat was for Sky and Scroll at Summit, can't help but think that that might have just been the missing piece for those two. The level up that they have experienced from having been in that type of position and now realizing just how they can match up to the pressure here in the Major 2 Grand Finals. But there are other teams still looking for other prizes, one of them being that Global's position. And for Truly and Savage, they have really had to try and dig their way out of the trenches here right now. Bimbo and Radion just hounding them for the most part, but Savage and Truly still getting just enough damage done, but they're going to need so much more than that. They want to stay in contention. 73 below now. Savage forced to pause, forced to utilize some of their healing resources. Got to get his shield back up to a level where he won't be immediately dropped on their next rotation, but Truly knows their options are so limited. They try to catch off guard Cammy and Hari, but it's going to be no use. Cammy, Hari immediately separate, and now Truly desperately trying to find any form of damage. Savage has already fallen though. And Truly, he has to get an elimination.
Truly, he's done so solo throughout this season, but unfortunately will meet his end. And that puts so much pressure on that final game now for that duo. but there are plenty other duos in a similar boat. Pink and Haris, they will not be fearful as they have such a big opportunity in this final game, or these final 2 games here, to make something happen. Jour needs to do his best because he currently sits in a global spot and he doesn't want to jeopardize that. As a solo, can't make it work.
Forcefully ejected from the lobby, but still has game 12 to work with to try and defend that position on the leaderboard. Velo and Zynox, another team in a similar position, only they are running very low on their build count. We saw Rax and Yanis just moments ago holding down a little bit of a low ground position. Now they've gone all the way up. Big point of elevation here. Solid material can do. The loadout's definitely looking fairly healthy in comparison to a lot of the other teams that we've hovered over. But for Sky and Scroll, every single time they secure an elimination, Shark and Teeny, you'd imagine their stomachs just gutted feelings because they are only continuing to create an even bigger gap. They are looking for being the back-to-back Axe of Champion wielders, and they might just do it depending on how this game 11 plays out for them. For right here, right now, Cringe, Volko doing everything they can to keep just breaking through some of these more congested areas. Venus and Fnatic, they won't be able to overcome the wall that is Sky and Scroll. That is dropped by Nathan. And even as a solo, it doesn't make a difference because every single one of these players looking for a separating moment that give them every single bit of placement points, every single bit of elimination points. Velo and Zynox diving right in, but get off a little bit more than they could chew here. Wi-Fi and Boris were ready to punch back.
Yeah, that is in such a tough spot. We're focused on the themes, fighting for globals, having struggles, and so many of those teams in the bubble might just be able to make it first as we go into this final game. Here in this end game, though, Sky and Scroll are still looking for that win condition. They want to add to the tally. They want to make it for another win.
And they've already got that front side low control. Rax, Yanis, they might be in a position where they're going to look to drop again, but from where we last saw Sky and Scroll at, and the way that this elevation has shifted, they are just looking to pick apart any sort of stragglers that come anywhere near their turf here. Velo still trying to do what he can to wrap around. Has gone unsighted for the time being, but Sky and Scroll, it feels like they might be doing the victory lap early here in game 11 because one more elimination onto Yanis. 4 already. Ample amounts of material now being picked up here. The medkits want to certainly help out aplenty. Sky, Scroll now looking to try and reunite. Velo, Tango, Wing, Boris, and Wi-Fi, but yet another elimination there. Sky and Scroll, though, looking back. Hari, Cammy, trying to make a resurgence. Today has not been theirs for the taking, but they're still looking to see whether or not game 11 could possibly go in their favor.
How do they keep doing it? Scroll should have been taken out ages ago, but it leaves Sky as a solo to continue to add points to the tally. And he has done it so many times here in this major for this duo. Whether it's major 1, Sky clutching up, major 2, Sky will do it again. So many valuable points on the board. But for Hutty and Fishy, this is a much needed opportunity at a win. But they have to be careful because Hari will never make it easy. The Storm will get the job done. Hutty and Fishy take game number 11.
It's a duo that we haven't had much opportunity to talk about throughout the course of this weekend so far, but coming alive in the final hour, better late than never after all. What did you say, Frankie?
Absolutely. Better late than never, but will it make much of a dent in the leaderboard? I am not so sure, but congratulations to Hutty and Fishy for claiming that victory royale. However, we have to admit that all eyes were on the low ground because we wanted to see if Sky and Scroll could do it yet again. They could have had a catastrophic early game, but they managed to come through again. We'll be talking in detail about their game after the break. But before then, let's talk about Hutty and Fishy Takata. This is a team that's had many lows this weekend, so it's great to see them on a high.
Yeah, I'm trying to even find where they were. There's 36th place going into this match. Just not a good weekend coming from these two. They were surprise contested last minute day one. They thought they were going to have Wonky on con, and it has just been downhill since then, Mini. But now, a little bit of an uphill.
Yeah, it's nice to see, of course. I think we expected bigger things from this weekend. The storyline that we were sort of teeing up is like, no more Shark and Teeny. Now the sky's the limit. And unfortunately, the sky was quite low for these guys over the course of the weekend. Just hasn't quite been their time. Hutzy, after yesterday, posted on socials, he just said, count me out. So he wasn't feeling confident after yesterday, but it's actually nice to see that confidence maybe being instilled in them. I'm interested to see actually where it puts them on the leaderboard. Of course, you know, their goal, of course, would be to qualify for the global championships. Maybe they need another big game like this in the very last one to actually make that happen. But they've given themselves the hope, which is the most important thing. They've given themselves something to latch onto here in this last game, because without that game, things were looking very dire indeed for them this weekend.
There's the FNCS Global's last chance qualifier that's coming up on August 14th. So for any duos who have counted themselves out, they don't have to count themselves out of Globals yet, but we'll be talking about who looks likely to make it to Belgium after the break.
Bon, là, on attend que la prochaine game se lance. Et je réponds à toutes vos différentes questions à propos de la chaîne ou des collabs à venir, des trucs du genre. Déjà, pour ceux qui n'étaient pas là, je réponds à la première question qui a été posée. Il y a Nox Melody qui a demandé c'est quand le prochain short à propos des trucs qui vont se passer sur la chaîne. Sachez que c'est prévu, il y a un short qui sort ce soir. Bon, cette nuit, je vais voir. Attendez, je fais un truc. Moi, je vous affiche le tableau.
And Argentina will be kicking themselves because that standoff of Frosted Flats, that was their decision to rotate over Mini Miner.
Pour
If
ceux
they
qui
hadn't
veulent,
ended up
voilà
in
le
that
tableau.
stalemate, they could have sorted themselves out, got ready for the mid game, and
Le
instead
tableau
we
du
saw it
classement
end in
team.
disaster for them.
Yeah, and that's the thing about Sky and Scroll. Every single time they've been asked questions of this grand finals, and of course last one as well.
Et désolé, j'avais oublié de vous remettre le son. Je le fais tout de suite.
Hari, because he has really showed up this weekend, Takara, and just showed up beyond probably a lot of people's expectations.
Damage, playing that fragger role perfectly, and Cammy has been putting him in the position to do so.
J'espère que là vous entendez.
More of a disparity between sort of 11th and 20th is that the teams that want to qualify for the Global Championship, which of course a lot of those teams, they need to make the most of these last two games. And Rax and Yanis definitely did that. I mean, it wasn't the best game ever for them. It wasn't an absolutely perfect game for them, but an 8th place with 7 eliminations really puts them in contention right now. A team that weren't on that standings, though, a team that weren't in that second page and are not on the screen right now, it is Mr. Savage. And of course, truly, they had a pretty poor performance there. Just one spot out of the placement points. So the big question for me right now is, can they clutch it up in the last moment? It seems to be always Mr. Savage doing it. Can they end the weekend how they started?
There's so many big names right outside of the cutoff. We talked about the fight for first. It's not very probable, but for all the duos that have a shot at qualifying to the Global Championship, this is their last chance to make it happen. Just some of the names outside of the range right now: Cringe Volko, Mr. Savage Truly, Izzy Nosif, Nevs Nathan. There's just too many titans that have everything on the line going into this last match.
Well, here's the thing, guys. You can prove yourself to be the best duo in Europe today after game 12, but you can't prove yourself to be the best duo in the world unless you make it to the FNCS Global Championships. After this game, we'll know who is in contention. So let's get into game 12.
Look, as far as Savage and Truly are concerned, Levin, maybe we want to chalk it up to it just being for the content, but we are going to need to see some big performances here in Game 12. And they're not the only ones trying to seek out that global qualification spot. They don't want to have to try and fare their way through that last chance qualifier. It is just going to be absolutely ballistic on that side of the pond. So obviously here, game 12. It's time to get the job done, so let's see it.
So much talent currently sits outside of our Global's qualification threshold. And that means just one thing. This game is about to get wicked. We are about to see so many different duos doing everything in their power. Before we get to Globals though, let's take one last look at our major champions here. Sky and Scroll will land at Frosted. And I think quite humorously, as the analyst sort of mentioned, for them to lose the FNCS from now, they would have to go down with 0 points, which uncontested or spawn isn't an issue. And Shark and Teeny would have to drop a 30 LM win, which has never been done. And I don't think anyone's even come anywhere close to putting up them type of numbers. So Sky and Scroll will do their victory lap, but Mr. Savage and Truly will just be trying to stay in the race. Marius and Fredoxy have not had the best FNCS final, but they will look to spoil the party here for Mr. Savage. Can he 1v2? No! Mr. Savage, the dream, the script. What a terrible ending to the story. They will go down at the hands of Fredoxy, who will add salt to the wound with an emote on top.
He knew exactly what he was doing. He knew exactly where he was going. He knew exactly what he was spoiling. Fredoxy enveloping the villain role here on day 2, but game is game. And for Fredoxy and Medius, that is going to be where they try to kick things off here. Prizing still on the line. After all, Shark and Teeny, on the other hand, though, they have admitted defeat. Sky and Scroll have already taken to social media. It is just way too big of an ask to expect for anybody to actually be able to get 30 eliminations and a win to overtake them. And for Shark and Teeny right now, they've got to be a lot more worried about whether or not they can even defend their second place position, because if Aldous and Larix are able to roll them over here, that might just be enough for somebody else on the leaderboard to potentially overtake. That gap not quite solid enough just yet, but Larix Valdez, they might have had the jump start. But even with the jump scare, Shark and Teeny are all too familiarized with evil Fortnite, and they will not be shaken this early on in game 12. Managed to win it. You can see where exactly things might have gone south entirely. Went a little bit further there.
That will be Maldis and Larix locking in the 49th place this weekend. Shark and Teeny. I mean, look, we have to talk and give them their props. They tried their hardest and they made things fun towards the end. But when you're playing against one of the best duos in Fortnite history, it's always going to be a tough task.
Imagine they get close, though. Just start to make them a little bit worried. You know, something like 20 eliminations. You might start to raise an eyebrow or two. You see Shark and Teeny on the move like that.
Didn't realize I was commentating with Boop here, mate. They are not dropping 20 elims, bro. Like, this is not happening. Like...
This is EU after all, so.
Salut, ça va?
True
Ça va,
facts.
toi?
But Asa, Turtle, really trying to bring things back. And for these two, trying to make sure that they stay inside of that threshold for getting their qualification spot to Belgium. Nebs and Nathan, on the other hand, they're trying to work their way in, and they are going to need a very sound performance here in Game 12 if they want to have any chance making their way in to around that top 17 area.
Yeah, this is a very key game. Nebs and Nathan, if you aren't familiar, they are probably the duo in EU outside of some of the biggest names, some of the already global qualified teams who were having the best season, right? When you looked at their performances in the divisional cups, when you looked at how they played in the heats, they looked like a team who was a shoo-in to qualify for globals this season. And I know they had their fair share of ups and downs, obviously, at times contested throughout the day, but the reality is for them to not qualify for globals would be a massive disappointment and not what people would have predicted at all. One thing that becomes very scary with Teeny and Shark, which we learned from the heats, is when Teeny and Shark don't feel like they have anything to play for, they become the scariest team in the lobby because they will just run at everyone and they often win most of the fights. And so if you are a team who is trying to qualify for the global championships or trying to hold on to your spot to qualify, this is the worst team you can face. Jour and Tidy will go down, and they came into this game in 8th, and I think they could be able to hold on. But boy, is that not how they wanted this game to go?
Not in the slightest, because even if you've got that spot locked in for globals, off the consistency metrics, there is still a decent amount of prize pooling up for grabs. And when you've essentially just got to sit it out, wait and see whether or not you actually get overtaken on the leaderboard, it can be a tough pill to swallow. But right there with you, Lev, Shark and Teeny, just every bit of the way, looking like Crash Out Nation currently. And you would think that they're like desperate for some kind of whopping performance to take them across the line here, but no, it's just them absolutely free-forming it the whole way through. They don't care. They're just making whatever plays they feel like they can pull off.
Yeah, and look, they're not the only ones crashing out. Look at the player count. Look at the amount of teams that are already out of this one. This game does not resemble what we have seen previously so far this weekend. I would love to get a leaderboard update because I wouldn't be surprised if a couple more of our teams who were in global qualification spots have gone down without us noticing, just with how many players have been falling. I mean, there must be a couple of them who are already out of it and just holding on. Scott, he's playing a bit of keepy uppies. GG, well played. Look. Clicks, fans, rise. Clicks, fans, rise. Hey, look, supporting their boy, I guess. Look, one thing we have to say on not Shark and Teeny, on Sky and Scroll before we really start to lock into the global spots is this is one of the best duos ever. To back-to-back EU majors, nobody's done it since 2021. It hasn't felt doable for a long time. We've seen some all-time great performances, Taco. But I think what really solidifies Sky and Scroll to me, no mythics, no medallions, no gimmicks, no broken POIs, just pure Fortnite excellence at a level that we have not seen. Two of the most complete players we have ever seen touch this game. They can do it all. I think the only comparison I've really seen people make, Taco, as far as the all-time greats and people in their primes when it comes to just this level of perfect Fortnite is Cammy and Seti from way back in the day, which is a fair comparison. But even then, you'd have to make the argument that these guys can fight in a way that maybe Cammy and Seti, even at their best, couldn't. And that really is what makes these guys such a scary prospect going into globals. And when you look at the all-time great teams.
And that's the bigger end of things that I think is impossible to avoid. If you are one of the competitors that is already confirmed for globals, every single other region, you are going to be voting every step of Sky and Scroll's performance here in Grand Finals. Even with slight shifts in the meta, Sky and Scroll have still managed to overcome, and they deserve every single bit of praise that is headed their way. You can never say enough on these two, especially after what they've accomplished this weekend. And given the fact that they had so many other teams trying to ruin it in the process, and yet they still manage to hold their composure and achieve a level of Fortnite that, like you said, Lev, just hasn't been seen in a very, very long time. But now, looking back out at all of these other teams that can't afford to lose their nerve either in this final moment, Nebs and Nathan, bit calmer, but that player count just thinning out so rapidly. Shark and Teeny also on the move. Roxy and Marius not too far off in the distance either from where Nebs and Nathan are currently at. And if I had to take a guess, Lev, wouldn't be surprised to see Fred and Marius potentially playing spoiler. Some of these other duos hovering at bubble territory for that global qualification spot. And Pink and Haris, it's so hard not to lose your composure.
Yeah, these guys, this is probably one of the biggest games of Pink's career. When you look at the heights he used to reach playing alongside Anas back in the day, it's been a while since we've really seen him shining. And what better opportunity than the Global Championships to show people, to prove to people, he's not done, he's not finished. They have to make this game count. They can't afford any slip-ups, any mistakes.
What also just makes that so tough too for a duo like Pink and Haris is that even Pink himself at one point has said, I've never invested more of myself. I've never given my all to something and not come back with some metric of success. And yet his recent tourneys in Fortnite have all just been devastating defeats, one after the next. So this could be a very big changing point for Pink's career, because to overcome that type of failure time and time again and then still manage to pull yourself into a position where you can say, yes, I've still got it. It's got to be one of the best feelings to accomplish as a player. And he's right there in competition.
Absolutely. Not the only one, though, that is close to doing it. Izzy and Nosif on our screens were another team who were going into this game outside and so need a big performance, but they're already a great example of a duo that has had such a fantastic comeback so far in day 2, but needs to do just a bit more. Teeny and Shark on our screens now, going up against Sky and Scroll. A little too late, lads. But boy, this would have been... I mean, yeah, maybe, but at what cost, man? What would we really be achieving here? Nothing that would change the standings rapidly at the top.
They've already set their eyes on Physics yet again, though. But Sky Scroll also following suit. Teeny actually going to meet his end. It's Bimbo and Radeon. They're going to be the first that they actually get caught out with, but Shark, he's just looking to try, have an opportunity to look to maybe play for a revive of Bimbo and Radeon. This might have actually been a very big lifeline for these two. Shark has a lot to offer. Unless they can't bring him down, Shark already gonna get one in. Bimbo Radeon might just be the next, and Shark turning it in his favor just like that. Despite losing Teeny, you can never just run at Shark, and that is a perfect example of why he is one of the most feared fraggers on this region.
Let's run this one back.
Insane.
Oh my goodness, that first pump was disgusting. And then he's just toying, playing with his food here. And a Mongrel classic to close it out. Shark showcasing, highlighting why he is so rated. But as Shark rotates in here as a solo, I do want to take the time, Taco, to big up Teeny. For all the praise Shark gets as being the best in EU, the best fragger, the talent that's going to compete with Peter Bot and be the greatest. Teeny in this Brands has been phenomenal. He has kept up and actually just led the duo all throughout the weekend. In the big moments when they've needed the job done, when they've needed clutches, Teeny has gotten the job done, and he's given the space and the room for your young Shark to find his footing in this Grands. And I think it just speaks to his level, his greatness. Over in NA, I think we've seen Curve being so impressive as a controller playing, pushing the boundaries of what we think is possible since the likes of Miro have dominated the game years ago. But Teeny here on EU continuing to showcase that he is the benchmark for top controller Fortnite. And I think he deserves his praise for that alongside the greatness of Shark.
Couldn't agree with you more. Excited to see Teeny has now forcefully passed the torch here to Shark. Let's see just how far Shark can actually take it as a solo. Exciting adventure, to say the least. Does have a really solid material count. This is the type of loadout you would want to see Shark rocking if he is in a solo-based position. For Asa and Turtle, time is running out here for these two. Asa can't afford to hold his walls any longer. The lobby focus just too detrimental. And you have to remember, that is a team that was right at placement 7 heading into this final. So their spot at Belgium might just be up for grabs. It all depends on how the rest of this lobby plays out, but just forced to sit and watch. It's a tough place to be in.
Yeah, as this lobby starts to close out, our focus switches away and onto those teams who need the qualification for the global championships. For Asa and Turtle to go down, and that is heartbreaking. They have really tried their hardest to get themselves back into contention today. They've had some excellent games. I mean, an 8th place, a 2nd place, and 2-6. You've seen them on height trying to fight for it, but it's just not been enough to secure them solidly. And there will be plenty of regret, I'm sure, as they replay what they could have done differently this weekend. And it's up to the rest of the teams in this lobby who are sitting on that bubble, in that range, to make sure they don't leave the weekend feeling the same tackle.
Probably the only thing missing right now from Sky and Scroll's performance, though, Lev, is just 6 out of 12. That's got to be the next challenge that they would look to approach potentially at some point in their careers. As of right now, all of these teams that are just stumbling their way through these first moving zones here. Cammy, Hari, overhead right now. Volko, Cringe, not going to be able to escape the sights of Zynox. Is now front side, getting a little bit more scrappy. Noah Riley won't be able to face up to it. Just too many players standing in his path. They'll be eliminated. Pix, Iron, also looking to try and cement themselves with their global certification. They'll have to be very cautious as they make their way across here now. Giannis and Rex have done a great job too, just playing recoveries. Inox actually cleared out Chap and Flixie. A little bit of a power position. They wait for an opportunity to strike, but with Giannis and Rex now making their move towards front side. Every player for himself, essentially, but Rex and Giannis doing a great job at staying next to each other.
No, Symphonisy. We talked about them needing a big game. Same with Nathan and Nebs. These teams are setting up to do it. But we've seen teams get to this point in the game and fall over, trip up. That can't be Nebs and Nathan's story if they want to be back on that global stage. And we need to see the Nebs and Nathan we have seen all throughout this season in divisional cups and all.
No time to buckle here. Nebs and Nathan have just got to be concise with every single move they make. Take their time, really try and see whether or not they can find an opportune moment inside of the mid-ground. They want to stay one layer above ultimate low. They know that's very likely where Sky and Scroll are going to be operating, but Sky and Scroll met with problems of their own here. Still, it doesn't matter in comparison to what Rax is trying to accomplish. Playing the medkit, Sky and Scroll out of the lobby, though, now means that frontside low up for grabs, and other teams looking to take advantage of it immediately. Pablo Chino also looking to cut players short. It's Pixie and Swizzy making things very complicated right now for Focus and Tons, but it's Pixie and Swizzy that pay the ultimate price here. Izzy and No-Sip, though, from deep inside of the storm, playing through that backside of zone. So chaotic on the front end of things, but Nebs, Nathan, they're going to be the ones that are trying to take matters into their own hands. They've got an opportunity here, Levin, and as small as it might be, they are going to have to seize every bit of it because they don't have any other options if they want to make it to globals.
Yeah, these guys have the benefit of some of those teams in the qualification spots have gone down and they don't have a chance to fend off their point leads. And so Nebs and Nathan, if they can start to add a couple more limbs to the tally and continue to control low ground, they might just do enough to book their tickets to Antwerp.
It's just so scary though, especially when you can hear all these audio cues around you. Nebs, Nathan though, managing to carve their way through frontside still. They see Kenty right in front of them. They're gonna punish Gino the moment that he tries to run for the body loop. Pablo incredibly injured also, but Nebs hasn't had a chance to look back and get those shots in just yet. Nathan needs some help, but Nebs won't be able to fall back in time. He is going to find another onto though. Nation bringing them one step closer to potentially securing that qualification spot. But Nebs, he's not finished. He sees Breezy, he knows the body, but he doesn't get the siphon. It's going to be the Storm, takes care of that player instead. Will be utilizing that Jug just to buy himself a little bit more time. The placement is going to be the topic of focus right now, as Izzy also doing everything in his power just to try and stay alive. One placement further, but Winter and Hellfire have held strong here on the low ground. They haven't had the chance to turn back around against Swizzy and Pixie, who are now looking for the immediate collapse.
Swizzy and Pixie will wrap this grand up and take game number 12. But it's all about that leaderboard. We are champions. We know who's been victorious, but who will be going to globals, Frankie?
We have to wait to find out, but right now, a huge congratulations to Sky and Scroll. They won Major 1 in glory. They had devastation, underperforming and placing fourth at the summit, and that could drive any duo apart. But this duo are built to bounce back, and not only have they done that in dominant fashion, Mini-Miner.
Unbelievably dominant throughout this weekend, unbelievably dominant throughout Major 1, so close to claiming that Summit title, but they have done it back-to-back major titles for the best duo in EU. Over on NA, we've seen the Peterbot era, but ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Sky and Scroll era.
Shivers. I'm getting nervous just thinking about the global championship. Not only did they win Major 1, now they've won Major 2, and we talked about the devastating end to Summit. Let me remind you, they were first place going into the last match. That's 250k for first, and they went down not to second, not to third, to fourth. Dropped down from 250 to 70k, but now they've shown there were doubters. You switch your drop spot, people have been broad reviewing your game, your play style, your strategies. It did not matter. They proved every single person wrong and now have won the back-to-back majors. I am so excited to see their performance at the Global Championship because they are looking like they're at a whole other level.
Honestly, throughout this weekend, every single that was asked of them, they've landed on, they've had doubters, they've been in mid-game fight, they've had Storm Surge to deal with. Every single question that was asked of them, they have dealt with. They are by far the best team on Europe right now. And as you mentioned to Carter, those global championships, they're coming for them.
I mean, it was one mistake. It was one mistake at Summit that cost them the victory, and they have learned from it, they have grown from it, and everyone in the lobby at the Global Championships needs to be ready for Sky and Scroll. So let's see who'll be joining them in Antwerp, because the leaderboard is ready. We're going to be looking at the top 17, so you can see there, Hari and Cami, never any doubt. From that day one performance, they set up their stall early, Cringe and Twi, huge congratulations to them. Day two wasn't quite as comfortable for them, Mini-Miner, but they showed that they deserve to make it to their next FNCS lap.
Yeah, definitely. They're a team to look out for now. They're a team that have cemented themselves as one of the best in the region. Their day one performance will not be forgotten. One bit unbelievable performance from the UK lads right there. Personally, so happy to see them in those standings as well. And a big congratulations as well, of course, to Gonzo making his first LAN here at the Global Championships. Really happy for them too.
Yeah.
It's so exciting. I mean, Eyedrop and Gonzo, what a performance. I can't wait to see Gonzo on LAN for the first time, Takata.
It's exciting. Just on the first page too, there was 6 out of the 9 already qualified teams, but Eyedrop it is going to be very interesting to see how they evolve. It was a bit of a mix-up throughout this weekend, starting off so strong, ending day one in quite literally the opposite way they started. But the good news, Minnie, is they didn't let it get to them. Mental stayed strong. They refreshed after a good night's sleep. They planned out what they were going to do going into the day two, and they did exactly enough to qualify themselves to the Global Championship.
Yeah, and it was interesting, of course, iDrop played with Marius at the last LAN. I think a lot of people, when these guys split, would have said, yeah, Marius is now going to go on to do great things. He's now dropped iDrop, but it was actually iDrop that came out the better of that split, and I'm really excited to see what he can do, of course, as well as Velo and Zynox. Excited to see what Zynox can do at his first LAN as well. Of course, Velo has that experience at the summit. These guys have proved us, or shown to us throughout this weekend, what it can mean to make your first major finals. What an incredible showing from those guys, who will, of course, be now making it into the global championships as well. Super excited for my Welsh friend as well, Zynox.
Yeah, let's see page 2 now. Vico and Malabuka have dropped lower. It won't be the top 17, so let's take a look. So they have dropped lower. So I believe now we're looking at the top 16, which means that Pix and FireN are the cutoff, and Nathan and Nebs have done it to Carter.
Just barely, and it was a very big match from Nathan and Nebs. Just making it to the end game would not have been enough to qualify. They got a very good amount of eliminations. It was actually 6 elims, 3rd place. What a clutch up to qualify themselves to the Global Championship.
And what a clutch up from Nebs there at the end. That's what did it, that solo clutch towards the end of that last game. Huge moments from him. Another player that we sort of spoken about so much as not having that big grand performance in terms of actual recent results. And although this one, in the grand scheme of things, yeah, 15th is not their best, I think it's definitely something to celebrate, because, of course, they've qualified through. We can see all of the teams that are qualified through here from Major 2. Lots of big names on the screen, and some newer names as well, frankly, which is great to see.
Yeah, it's really great to see Rax joining Yanis. Rax's first LAN, I think he could do incredibly well. This is a player that we're going to be talking about for the next few seasons at least. He's just getting started, and I can't think of a better in-game leader to be teamed up with than Yanis. Yanis has seen it all before. He's got that experience, and now he's also putting up numbers. Again, it's going to be so exciting to see those guys, but it's also going to be incredibly exciting to see the return of Shark and Teeny. They'd already qualified for the Global Championships, and tonight we saw them on fire. Yes, it wasn't flawless. Yes, there are things they're going to be working on, but the hunger never changes to Carter. It's always there. We even saw it in that last game. The eliminations, they were going, pressing W, trying to take every name they could and go down in a blaze of glory.
I think they were listening to the broadcast, because when Minnie said, okay, what do they need to win? They said 30 elimination victory royale, and they said, okay, you know what, let's make it happen. And remember, the record for the most eliminations in a grand finals was 16, and then they, I think, got 12 eliminations before the end game even started. Unfortunately, they did go down. I was actually concerned for Rax and Yanis too, one of the people who got pushed by them, but they've just shown how powerful they can be and how strong of contenders they are for that one spot. So we'll see if they can make something happen at Globals.
You know what? Just massive appreciation, massive credit to this duo as well, because yes, they didn't take home the title. Yes, they didn't quite live up to the expectations that people may have had of them, particularly on day one. But what they did give us was so much entertainment. The only realistic team that pushed Sky and Scroll all the way down to that penultimate game of the weekend. They could have just run away with it, realistically, Sky and Scroll, if Shark and Teeny weren't there. And a note on